We are all team members of the CIHR Social Research Center in HIV Prevention. As researchers, we want to offer context to our group of colleagues within the SRC and more broadly to other HIV researchers and community advocates with an interest in decolonizing Indigenous and African diaspora research methodologies. We also wanted to learn from each other and collectively advocate for diverse research methodologies in HIV and AIDS research in Canada. Initial scoping of the literature yielded 21,467 references. We chose to restrict literature to 1999 onwards after our search. Our team employed a standardized screening tool to review abstracts for inclusion in our review. This resulted in 3,175 abstracts being included. To review our yield of included literature, we purposely pulled 350 full articles as a sample of the includes. We reviewed these for inclusion, which resulted in 82 relevant articles. A planned meeting to review our progress evolved into a full-day discussion about our review process and our reflections of the literature. What are we doing? Why are we involved in this project? What does this project mean to us as individuals and as researchers? How do we feel about being involved on this project? We felt this was an important discussion to record, capture visually and orally what words may not.
While working with Aboriginal communities, there's this taking up of colonialism. When I work with ACB communities, and even in my own identity, like even in my own sort of rhetoric, colonialism never gets taken up.
Yes.
Being a first-generation immigrant from the Caribbean, and then having my own roots coming from all over the place. So we're from Europe to India to Africa, like everywhere. So again, trying to piece together connection to land, colonialism, these processes that affect our history, our roots, what we call, what is indigenous for us, what is African knowledge, what is indigenous to us, especially in the Caribbean where there's a lot of internal racism towards being connected to Africa. So, just trying to piece together what that is. But I also work with communities that have this, have in a lot of cases, this rich connection to that history, to this rhetoric of colonialism, to the knowledge of these connections to health and how health is lived, how we internalize and live these kinds of experiences. Mm-hmm. But then again, being disconnected from that myself in the communities that I most identify with.
Being from Canada of Caribbean and African heritage, but growing up with the more Caribbean experiences, is that we're just not legitimate. We're a lost people who came from an oppression, and we did come from an oppression, but we're still here. We're here. We're real, and our cultures are real. Our identities are real, and that's what culture is. Isn't that what culture? We exist because culture changes. It allows us to adapt, right? So we're not,
And it's not about going back to Africa, but it's about understanding that literature and understanding, some of the discussions, like storytelling. We all talked about storytelling as being relevant to our culture. Yeah. Why? It's not about, and also the creolization or the embodiment of multiple cultures in the Caribbean has brought us a rich history too. But it's understanding the why that I find that when I look at the Aboriginal Indigenous literature, they look at the whys through colonization. I don't know if we look at the whys as much. And I wonder why we don't look at the whys.
Aboriginal Indigenous people, I know my experience best, struggle with issues of identity, disconnection from this tribal wisdom, and so I think we share that experience in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. But it's essentially the same thing, I think. And as I read and learn and talk to elders, I learn things like we're spiritual beings and we have a blood memory. Mm-hmm. And when we sit quietly and listen very deeply, we can, because we're just spirits in a body, right? Mm-hmm. And our spirits go across time. Mm-hmm. And so we carry that knowledge within us, even though it's buried very deep. But if we take opportunities to listen deeply. We sometimes hear that, like you sometimes behave in ways that you're being traditional and cultural, and you don't know you are.
Yes, yeah.
So, like, what do we do with this? How do we be in the world?
Mhm.
If the world includes multiple, kinds of places, right? And I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves when we're talking about scoping reviews or any kind of research, really. How are we as a people, right? And how do we inhabit that space?
I think this has been quite a journey. And it's, I guess most of the time the methodologies that I've used in research were really Western based, and but I always questioned it because you knew there's actually something missing in them. I'm not really getting the essence of what I need to get, because location within a Southern methodology literature is not really didn't capture the diaspora experience, but it actually captured an aspect of your life within that context of being simultaneously being located in different spaces. So for me, the question now is, what do we do with that missing gap?